Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty, watching the stars through the main window. The year was 2387 and humanity had been part of the Galactic Council for 57 years now. At first, the aliens welcomed humans as a new species with fresh ideas and useful technology. But things had changed over the decades. The communication system made a loud beeping sound. Lieutenant Commander Bobby Chun turned to Morrison with a worried look on his face. "Admiral, we have an incoming transmission from the Council. Priority 1. They want to speak with you directly." Morrison nodded and straightened his uniform. He had been expecting this call for weeks now. The Council had been sending complaints about human activities across the galaxy. Too much expansion, they said. Too many new colonies. Too much independence. Put them through chain? The main screen flickered and showed the cold face of Counselor Vexthara. The tall crystalline being from the Zephrine Empire looked down at Morrison with glowing blue eyes. Behind Vexthara stood representatives from dozens of other alien species. All of them looked angry. Species designation human Vexthara spoke in a voice that sounded like breaking glass. "The Galactic Council has reached a unanimous decision regarding your recent activities. Your rapid territorial expansion violates the Harmony Accords established 3,000 years ago." Captain Lisa Rodriguez moved closer to Morrison. She had been his tactical advisor for 5 years and could read the tension in his shoulders. This was not going to be good news. "Furthermore," Vexthara continued, "your species has shown a disturbing lack of respect for established galactic protocols. You colonize worlds without proper authorization. You develop technology without submitting it for Council approval. You refuse to limit your population growth as required by law." Morrison felt his jaw tighten but kept his expression neutral. Every word the alien spoke made his anger grow. Humanity had never harmed another species. They only settled on empty worlds or planets with no intelligent life. Their technology had helped millions of beings across the galaxy live better lives. Therefore, the Council issues the following ultimatum. You will immediately cease all colonization efforts beyond your current 17 systems. You will submit to mandatory population controls administered by Council representatives. All human military vessels exceeding Class 3 specifications must be decommissioned within 1 solar cycle. The bridge went completely silent. Morrison could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. They wanted humanity to stop growing, stop exploring, stop being human. Additionally, Vexthara said with what might have been satisfaction, all future human technological development must be approved by the Council before implementation. No more unauthorized research, no more independent innovation. Chief Engineer Susan Parker stepped forward from her station. Her face was red with anger. Morrison held up a hand to keep her quiet, but she could barely contain herself. "The Council understands this may seem restrictive," the alien continued, "but your species has proven incapable of self-regulation. You breed too quickly, you expand too rapidly. You ask too many questions and refuse to accept established wisdom." Morrison wanted to punch something. These aliens had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years by keeping everyone else under their control. Humanity threatened that control simply by being human, by refusing to accept that things had to stay the same forever. You have 30 standard days to respond with your unconditional acceptance of these terms. Failure to comply will result in immediate economic sanctions followed by military intervention if necessary. The Council's patience with your species has reached its limit. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in shocked silence. Morrison looked around at his crew. Every face showed the same mixture of anger and disbelief. "Get me President Walsh?" Immediately, Morrison said to Chun, "Emergency priority." Within minutes, President Amanda Walsh appeared on the main screen from Earth. Her gray hair was pulled back severely and her green eyes blazed with fury. She had obviously already received the transmission. "Admiral, I assume you heard their demands," Walsh said without preamble. "Yes, ma'am. What are your orders?" "Get every department head online now. We need an emergency session of the Colonial Council within the hour." The next 2 hours saw the most intense political discussion in human history. Leaders from every human world participated in the video conference. Scientists spoke about the technological restrictions. Military commanders discussed the weapon limitations. Colonial governors explained what population controls would mean for their growing worlds. Dr. Allen Foster represented the scientific community. The tall, thin man with graying hair had spent his career studying alien biology and culture. He understood the council species better than almost any other human. The restrictions they demand would essentially end human civilization, as we know it, Foster explained to the assembly. No more children without alien permission. No more exploration beyond our current tiny territory. No more innovation without their approval. We would become slaves in everything but name. General Rick Thompson commanded the colonial defense forces. His weathered face showed decades of military service. Man, these Class 3 restrictions would leave us defenseless. Our best ships would have to be scrapped. We would have nothing but patrol boats and cargo haulers. Commander Helen Parker spoke from Europa Station, where she oversaw defensive construction projects. The timeline is impossible anyway. Even if we wanted to comply, we could not decommission that many ships in one solar cycle. They are setting us up to fail. The debate continued for hours, but the conclusion was inevitable. Every human leader reached the same decision independently. They had come to the stars seeking freedom and opportunity. They would not give that up now, no matter what the consequences. President Walsh finally called for a formal vote. All in favor of accepting the council ultimatum? Not a single hand went up from the hundreds of participants. All in favor of rejecting the ultimatum and maintaining human independence? Every hand shot up immediately. The vote was unanimous. Morrison felt a surge of pride watching his species stand together. Humanity had faced impossible odds before, and always found a way through. They would do it again. Admiral Morrison, Walsh said, you have authorization to transmit our response when ready. Make sure every species in the galaxy hears it clearly. As the conference ended, Morrison turned to his bridge crew. These men and women would soon be fighting for their lives against overwhelming odds, but none of them looked afraid. They looked determined. The next 28 days passed in a blur of preparation. Every human world mobilized for war. Civilians volunteered for military service in record numbers. Factories converted to weapons production. Scientists worked around the clock developing new defensive technologies. On the 28th day, Morrison stood once again on his bridge preparing to send humanity's answer to the galaxy. The message that would change everything. Admiral Jake Morrison adjusted his uniform one final time before stepping in front of the recording equipment. Behind him hung the flags of every human colony world in the galaxy. 17 different flags representing 17 different dreams of freedom among the stars. Today those dreams would either live or die based on the words he was about to speak. Captain Lisa Rodriguez nodded from her position at the communications console. All frequencies are open, Admiral. Every species in the galaxy will receive this transmission simultaneously. Morrison took a deep breath and looked directly into the camera. Somewhere out there, billions of aliens were waiting to hear if humanity would bow to their demands. They were about to get their answer. To the Galactic Council and all who witnessed this transmission, Morrison began in a clear, strong voice. Humanity has carefully considered your ultimatum. We have discussed your demands with our leaders and our people. Our answer is simple and final. We refuse. The words echoed across the bridge of the Liberty. Chief Engineer Susan Parker smiled grimly at her station. Lieutenant Commander Bobby Chun shook his head in amazement at human stubbornness. They all knew this moment would change everything. We came to the stars not as conquerors but as explorers and builders, Morrison continued. Every world we have settled was barren rock or empty space before we arrived. Every innovation we have shared has improved lives for countless species across the galaxy. Yet you demand we abandon our children's futures and accept chains disguised as law. On the planet New Texas, General Rick Thompson watched the transmission from his command center. Around him, officers from the Colonial Defense Forces prepared for the war they all knew was coming. Thompson had fought in 3 colonial conflicts and knew the look of soldiers preparing for impossible odds. His people wore that look now. "You speak of harmony and order," Morrison said to the camera, "but what you really mean is control and stagnation. For 3,000 years, the Council has ruled this galaxy by keeping every species in their assigned place. You fear humanity not because we are violent or destructive, but because we refuse to stay in the box you have built for us." On Europa Station, Commander Helen Parker supervised the rapid construction of new defensive platforms. Her engineering crews worked in shifts around the clock, welding armor plating and installing weapon systems. The massive orbital fortresses would never be enough to stop a full Council fleet, but they would make the aliens pay dearly for every attack. Dr. Alan Foster sat in his laboratory on Luna Base analyzing intercepted Council communications. What he had discovered in the past week made his blood run cold. The aliens were not just angry about human expansion. They were terrified of human potential. Secret Council documents revealed that humanity's technological advancement occurred at a rate that should have been impossible according to their science. "We know you have mobilized your fleets," Morrison continued his broadcast. "We know you believe your superior numbers and ancient weapons will force us to submit. You are wrong. Humanity has never bowed to tyranny, whether it came from our own species or from the stars. We will not start now." The transmission was being watched across human space by millions of people. In the underground cities of Mars, families gathered around their screens. On the farming colonies of the Outer Rim, workers stopped their daily labor to listen. Children too young to fully understand still sensed the gravity of the moment. Foster made another disturbing discovery while reviewing the intercepted files. The Council's fear of humanity went beyond simple territorial concerns. Several species believed humans represented an existential threat to the galactic order itself. They saw humanity's rapid growth and innovation as a cancer that would spread and destroy their carefully maintained civilization. "Some of you may wonder if we understand the consequences of our defiance," Morrison said. "We do. We know you have weapons that can crack planets. We know you have fleets that have never known defeat. We know the odds against us seem impossible. But we also know something you have forgotten after millennia of unchallenged rule." On the industrial world of New Pittsburgh, factory workers cheered as they watched Morrison's speech. The massive shipyards buzzed with activity as new warships took shape under their skilled hands. These vessels incorporated the latest human innovations in propulsion and defensive systems, technologies the Council had never seen before and did not understand. "We know that freedom is worth fighting for even when victory seems impossible," Morrison declared. "We know that a single person with the courage to stand up can change the course of history. We know that innovation and determination can overcome any advantage gained through age and numbers alone." The secret intelligence Foster had uncovered revealed something else interesting. Not all Council species supported the ultimatum to humanity. The Kelani Collective had abstained from the vote. 3 other junior species had voted against military action only to be overruled by the senior members. Cracks existed in the seemingly unified Council structure. "To those species who stand with the Council out of fear rather than conviction, we say this," Morrison continued. "You do not have to be our enemies. This conflict is not of your choosing. When the time comes to decide between the old ways of control and new possibilities of freedom, we hope you will remember that humanity has never sought to dominate others, only to be free ourselves." Military preparations continued across human space as Morrison's words spread through the galaxy. On the asteroid mining stations, volunteer crews prepared their industrial equipment for conversion to military use. Rock crushers became kinetic. Weapons mining lasers became ship-mounted cannons. Even civilian cargo haulers received armor plating and defensive systems. "To the Council leadership, we say this clearly so there can be no misunderstanding," Morrison's voice grew harder. "We will not submit to your authority. We will not abandon our colonies. We will not stop exploring and growing and learning. If, you want to stop humanity, you will have to destroy us completely because we will never surrender. Commander Parker received word that the first Council scout ships had been detected at the edge of human territory. Long-range sensors showed massive energy signatures moving through hyperspace toward human worlds. The aliens were already mobilizing their response to Morrison's defiant message. And to our fellow humans across the galaxy we say this, Morrison concluded his historic broadcast. The road ahead will be difficult and dangerous. Some of us may not live to see the end of this conflict, but our children and their children will grow up free among the stars because of what we do today. That is worth any sacrifice. That is worth any price. The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. Never before had a junior species directly challenged the Council's authority. The precedent Morrison had set would echo through history regardless of how the coming war ended. Humanity had drawn a line in the stellar dust and dared the galaxy to cross it. Fleet Commander Zarkith of the Thurvany Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the human colony world of New Frontier grow larger on the main screen. The massive dreadnought Eternal Judgment stretched over 5 kilometers from bow to stern with armor plating thick enough to withstand planetary bombardment. Around his flagship, 3,000 Council warships formed the largest military force in galactic history. The human response force looked pathetic by comparison. Admiral Morrison's fleet contained barely 200 vessels scattered around the colony world's orbital defenses. Most of the human ships were smaller than Council escort frigates. Their largest vessel, the UES Liberty, was dwarfed by even the smallest Council cruiser. This will be over quickly, Zarkith told his tactical officer. The reptilian warrior had commanded fleets for over 2 centuries and never faced serious resistance. No species had ever challenged Council authority with such a small force. Signal. The human admiral. Demand his immediate surrender. Morrison received the transmission on the Liberty's bridge. The alien commander appeared on screen wearing ceremonial battle armor decorated with the skulls of defeated enemies. Behind him, the bridge crew moved with military precision honed over millennia of conquest. Human Admiral, you are outnumbered. 15-1, Zarkith announced in his gravelly voice. Your weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Your armor cannot stop our cannons. Surrender now, and your crews will be treated according to galactic law. Continue this foolish resistance, and you will all die. Morrison looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. Captain Rodriguez stood ready at the tactical station. Chief Parker monitored the new experimental systems they had installed over the past month. Lieutenant Commander Chung coordinated communications with the other human ships. None of them showed any fear. Commander Zarkith, Morrison replied calmly, humanity appreciates your concern for our welfare. However, we must respectfully decline your generous offer. If you want this system, you will have to take it from us. The alien commander's eyes widened in disbelief. No species had ever rejected such a reasonable surrender demand. Very well, human. Your deaths will serve as an example to others who might consider defying Council authority. The battle began when Zarkith ordered his forward ships to open fire. Massive energy beams lanced across space toward the human defensive positions. The beams struck the first line of human vessels, and something impossible happened. The energy weapons that should have vaporized the small ships simply scattered harmlessly across their hulls. Captain Danny Walsh commanded the destroyer UES Defiance, positioned at the edge of the human formation. His weapons officer, Lieutenant Karen Young, reported readings that made no sense according to standard physics. Sir, the enemy beams are losing coherence when they hit our new armor plating. It's like the energy just disappears. The Council fleet's tactical computers struggled to process what they were seeing. Their most powerful weapons designed to crack fortified worlds were having no effect on ships that should have been destroyed instantly. Fleet Commander Zarkith ordered his ships to close range and switch to kinetic weapons. The human fleet responded by doing something that violated every tactical manual in the galaxy. Instead of maintaining defensive positions, they accelerated directly toward the massive Council armada. The small human ships moved with impossible speed and agility, dancing between the alien vessels, like fighters among bombers. Chief Petty Officer Sam Martinez worked frantically in the Liberty's engine room, monitoring the new propulsion systems. The gravitational manipulation drives pushed the ship's acceleration far beyond what the crew should have been able to survive. Yet somehow the inertial dampening fields kept everyone conscious and functional. "How is this possible?" Martinez shouted over the roar of the engines to his assistant. "We're pulling 15 Gs, but it feels like normal gravity in here." The secret lay in humanity's breakthrough discoveries over the past decade. While the Council species had stagnated technologically for centuries, human scientists had been pushing the boundaries of known physics. Gravity manipulation, quantum locked, armor, and dimensional folding had moved from theory to reality in record time. The tide of battle shifted when Captain Rodriguez led her squadron in a direct assault on the Council's heavy cruiser formation. Her frigate UES Tempest had been fitted with humanity's first prototype dimensional weapon. The device could punch holes in space-time itself, creating portals that bypassed traditional armor and shielding. The dimensional cannon fired, sending a beam of twisted space toward the nearest Council ship. The beam struck the cruiser's hull and simply passed through the armor plating as if it did not exist. The weapon continued through the ship's interior, destroying vital systems before emerging from the opposite side. Panic began to spread through the Council fleet as their technological superiority proved worthless against human innovation. Ships that had ruled the galaxy for millennia found their weapons useless and their defenses penetrated by impossible human technology. But humanity's greatest advantage was not their advanced equipment. It was something the Council species had lost over centuries of easy victories. Human crews refused to give up even when their ships were damaged beyond any hope of repair. The destroyer UES Courage took a direct hit from a Council battleship's main cannon. The blast tore the ship completely in half, severing all connections between the forward and aft sections. Any other species would have abandoned the wreckage immediately. Instead, both halves of the Courage continued fighting as independent vessels. Lieutenant Commander Bobby Chun coordinated the Liberty's tactical display, showing the impossible battle unfolding around them. "Admiral, their formation is breaking up. Half their ships are trying to retreat while the other half are still advancing. They've never faced an enemy that could actually hurt them before." The climax came when Captain Rodriguez made a desperate decision. Her damaged frigate could not survive much longer against the concentrated fire from multiple Council ships. Instead of retreating, she ordered her crew to ram the Eternal Judgment itself. "All hands prepare for collision," Rodriguez announced over the ship's communication system. "It's been an honor serving with you all." The Tempest accelerated toward Zarketh's flagship with its dimensional weapon charging for one final shot. The massive dreadnought's point defense systems filled space with defensive fire but could not stop the small human ship. At the last moment, Rodriguez fired her weapon directly into the Eternal Judgment's bridge. The dimensional beam tore through the flagship's command center, and Zarketh watched in horror as his bridge crew disappeared into holes in space-time itself. Emergency systems activated as the great ship began to list helplessly. The sight of their mighty flagship crippled by a single human frigate sent shockwaves through the Council fleet. For the first time in 3 millennia, their seemingly invincible armada was in retreat. Ships that had never known defeat fled from an enemy they could not understand or overcome. Admiral Morrison watched the alien fleet withdraw beyond weapons range, leaving debris from dozens of Council ships scattered across the battlefield. Humanity had achieved the impossible. They had defeated the mightiest military force in galactic history. News of humanity's impossible victory spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. On Nexus Prime, the Council chambers erupted in chaos as representatives from 43 species argued and shouted at each other. Ancient beings who had maintained order for 3,000 years suddenly found their entire worldview crumbling around them. Counselor Vexthara stood before the emergency assembly, trying to maintain some semblance of control. The crystalline being's normally calm voice cracked with barely contained fury. "This defeat is temporary. One battle does not determine the outcome of a war. We will mobilize every ship, every weapon, every resource at our disposal." The ethereal conclave spoke for the first time in recorded galactic history. These ancient beings had observed silently for countless centuries, watching civilizations rise and fall. Their voice echoed through the chamber like whispers from beyond time itself. "Perhaps it is we who have forgotten what it means to truly fight." Dr. Alan Foster worked frantically in his laboratory on Luna Base, analyzing captured Council technology brought back by the surviving human ships. What he discovered made his hands tremble as he recorded his findings. The galaxy's elder species had not just stagnated technologically, they had become psychologically dependent on the existing order. "President Walsh, you need to see this immediately," Foster transmitted his report to Earth. "The Council species have been using the same basic technology for over 1,000 years. They stopped innovating, stopped questioning, stopped trying to improve. Their societies are built on rigid hierarchies where change itself is considered dangerous." President Amanda Walsh reviewed Foster's analysis from her office in Geneva while construction crews worked around the clock to repair battle damage on New Frontier. The victory had come at a cost. 17 human ships destroyed and over 300 crew members dead. But they had proven something important. The Council could be defeated. An unexpected visitor arrived at Luna Base under a flag of truce. Ambassador Quithen of the Kalani Collective requested immediate audience with human leadership. The crystalline being had risked everything by coming to human space without Council authorization. Foster met the alien diplomat in a specially prepared chamber designed for non-oxygen breathing species. Quithen's body consisted of living crystal formations that pulsed with internal light. When the being spoke, its voice came through harmonic translators that turned sound into music. "Your species has accomplished something we believed impossible," Quithen explained through the melodic translation system. "You have shown the galaxy that the Council can be wrong. But now they will try to destroy you completely, and in doing so they will reveal their true nature to everyone." The ambassador brought terrifying news about the Council's ultimate response to human defiance. Deep in the restricted archives of the ancient cosmic architects lay blueprints for a weapon beyond imagination. The reality engine could literally rewrite the laws of physics in localized space. Originally built to terraform hostile worlds for colonization, Quithen continued, the device has been modified for warfare. They plan to use it to make your technology cease to function. Perhaps even make your biology incompatible with existence itself. Foster felt his blood turn cold at the implications. A weapon that could change reality itself would make all of humanity's technological advantages worthless. Their ships would become powerless hulks. Their weapons would refuse to fire. Their very bodies might stop working according to the laws of physics, but Quithen brought more than just warnings. The Kalani Collective had made a momentous decision. After centuries of quiet submission to Council authority, they were openly rebelling. Their advanced shield technology would be shared with humanity along with detailed intelligence about Council military capabilities. "We are not the only ones," the ambassador revealed. 3 other species have voted to leave the Council and join your cause. The Thurvany warrior caste is split, with many younger members refusing to fight against the species they respect. Even some units of the synthetic consciousness have chosen individual thought over collective programming. President Walsh addressed the growing alliance from the rebuilt command center on New Frontier. Behind her, holographic displays showed the locations of Allied fleets converging on human space. For the first time in galactic history, an interspecies military alliance existed without Council approval. The rebellion spread faster than anyone expected. On dozens of worlds, junior species that had chafed under Council restrictions began declaring independence. The rigid order that had maintained galactic stability for millennia started fracturing along lines of resentment, built up over centuries. Commander Helen Parker coordinated defensive preparations around Earth itself as long-range sensors detected massive energy signatures from the direction of Council space. Whatever the aliens were bringing this time made their previous armada look like a patrol squadron. Captain Danny Walsh commanded the new flagship UES Constitution built with combined human and alien technology. His crew included not just humans, but colony engineers whose crystalline forms interfaced directly with the ship's computer systems. Thurvany warriors who had abandoned their own fleet served, alongside human marines learning to fight as integrated units. The Reality Engine fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system 3 weeks after Quitheness' warning. Admiral Morrison watched through the Constitution's main viewer as ships beyond counting filled the darkness between stars. At the center of the armada floated a construct that hurt to look at directly. The Reality Engine itself defied description. Part machine, part living organism, part mathematical concept made manifest, the device seemed to exist in more dimensions than human eyes could process. Space around it rippled and twisted as fundamental forces bent to its alien will. "My God," whispered Captain Rodriguez from her position at the tactical station. "It's already starting. Gravity readings are fluctuating across the system. Electromagnetic fields are shifting. Even our atomic clocks are running at different speeds." The weapons activation began slowly but with terrifying inevitability. Across human space, technology started to malfunction as the basic constants of the universe changed. Energy weapons lost coherence. Gravity drives produced random thrust vectors. Electronic systems crashed as the behavior of electrons themselves became unpredictable, but humanity had one final card to play. Dr. Foster's greatest breakthrough awaited deployment in the Constitution's experimental bay. Chief Engineer Charlie Parker supervised the installation of humanity's own reality manipulation device. Not copied from ancient alien technology, but built from pure human determination to understand and reshape the universe itself. The possibility drive represented everything that made humanity unique. Where the Council's reality engine imposed rigid order on chaos, the human device embraced infinite potential. It did not seek to control the universe, but to expand what the universe could become. Admiral Parker reported as the installation completed. "The drive is online and ready. But I have to warn you, sir. We have no idea what will happen when we activate it. This technology has never been tested under combat conditions." Morrison looked around the bridge at the faces of humans and aliens working together as one crew. They had come so far from that first ultimatum demanding humanity bow to alien authority. Now they stood ready to reshape reality itself. Rather than surrender their freedom, the final battle for the future of galactic civilization was about to begin. The reality engine's power reached across the solar system, like invisible fingers of change touching everything humanity had built. Admiral Morrison felt the deck of the Constitution shudder beneath his feet as the ship's gravity generators struggled against altered physics. Around him, his mixed crew of humans and allied aliens worked desperately to keep their systems functioning as the laws of nature shifted. Captain Rodriguez reported from the tactical station with growing alarm in her voice. "Admiral, our main weapons are losing power. The energy cells are draining even though they should be fully charged. It's like the fundamental forces that make our technology work are being rewritten." The Council fleet advanced through space behind their reality-warping weapon. Thousands of alien ships moved in perfect formation while their ancient commanders watched humanity's defenses crumble under the assault of changed physics. This was how rebellions should end, they believed. Not through destruction, but through the simple removal of the rebels' ability to resist. On Earth's orbital platforms, Commander Helen Parker led her defense crews in a desperate struggle to maintain basic life support. "Switch to manual backups," she ordered as computer systems crashed around her. "If the machines won't work, we'll do everything by hand." The possibility drive sat in the Constitution's experimental bay humming with barely contained energy. Chief Engineer Charlie Parker monitored readings that made no sense according to any known science. The device seemed to exist in a state of constant potential, ready to become whatever humanity needed it to be. "Admiral, the drive is ready for activation," Parker reported. "But sir, I still can't predict what will happen." We're about to make human imagination into a physical force. The consequences could reshape the entire galaxy. Morrison looked around his bridge at the faces of beings who had chosen to stand with humanity against impossible odds. Kelani engineers, whose crystalline bodies interfaced directly with failing computer systems. Thurvani warriors who had abandoned their own people to fight for freedom. Even a synthetic consciousness unit that had chosen individual thought over collective programming. Do it, Morrison ordered. Activate the drive? The possibility drive came online with a sound like reality itself taking a deep breath. Across the human fleet, strange things began to happen. Ships that should have been powerless suddenly blazed with new energy. Weapons that had stopped working fired beams of pure determination. Armor plating grew stronger through sheer force of will. Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos led her Marines in boarding actions against Council ships using weapons that should not have existed. When their energy rifles failed, they found themselves carrying chemical projectile weapons that appeared from nowhere. When those ran out of ammunition, they discovered their bare hands could punch through alien armor. Pilot Commander Steve Johnson flew his fighter through impossible maneuvers as his ship responded to thoughts rather than controls. His craft twisted through dimensions that mathematics said did not exist while firing missiles made of crystallized hope and determination. The reality. Engine's ancient operators watched in horror as their perfect weapon met something they had never encountered before. Human will made manifest as a force of nature. The device had been designed to impose order on chaos, but humanity's response was to make chaos itself a tool for victory. Captain Danny Walsh commanded a squadron of ships that existed in multiple states simultaneously. His vessels were both damaged and whole depending on what his crew believed in any given moment. When his gunners were certain their weapons would work, they fired beams that could pierce any armor. When his engineers knew their engines would function, they achieved speeds that should have torn the ships apart. The turning point came when Captain Rodriguez made a decision that would echo through galactic history. Her ship, the Constitution, could not match the reality engine's power directly, but the possibility drive allowed her to do something unprecedented. She made human determination itself into a measurable force that strengthened their weapons and hardened their armor. Across the human fleet, crews discovered that their absolute refusal to surrender had become a physical law. Ships repaired themselves through the sheer stubborn insistence of their crews. Weapons grew more powerful as their operators refused to accept defeat. The collective will of humanity became a force that could reshape reality. The ancient cosmic architects who controlled the reality engine found themselves facing something their science could not explain. These beings had existed since the birth of galaxies and thought they understood all the forces of creation, but humanity represented something new. Evolution in progress. Growth and change made manifest. Commander Parker watched her orbital platforms not just resist the reality engine's effects, but grow stronger in response. "It's working," she reported to the fleet. "Our defenses are adapting. The more they try to change us, the more we change ourselves in response." The climax came when Morrison ordered the Constitution to engage the reality engine directly. The human flagship accelerated toward the impossible device while space itself twisted around them. But instead of trying to destroy the ancient weapon, Morrison attempted something far more audacious. "Target their control systems," he ordered Rodriguez. "We're not going to destroy the reality engine. We're going to turn it back on itself." The possibility drive reached full power as human imagination took control of the device that had been built to impose absolute order. For the first time in 3 millennia, the reality engine's operators lost control of their ultimate weapon. The device began showing them exactly what they had built: a tool for oppression, a way to force entire species into submission. The revelation spread through the Council fleet like wildfire. Captains who had believed they were maintaining galactic peace suddenly saw themselves as enforcers of tyranny. Crews who had thought they were fighting dangerous rebels realized they were trying to destroy a species whose only crime was refusing to accept chains. The reality engine turned its power on the Council's own rigid hierarchy. Ancient laws that had seemed eternal revealed themselves as arbitrary rules designed to maintain power. Perfect order showed its true face as stagnation and death. The weapon that was meant to preserve the old ways instead demonstrated why they had to change. Admiral Morrison broadcast a final message to the galaxy as the Council fleet began to surrender ship by ship. We came to the stars not to rule, but to explore, not to conquer, but to grow. The galaxy is vast enough for all of us to become more than we imagined possible. The only order we refuse to accept is the order that says this is all we can ever be. In the years that followed, historians from dozens of species would study the moment when humanity refused to bow. They concluded it marked not just the end of the old Galactic Council, but the beginning of true galactic civilization, one built not on fear of change, but on the endless human conviction that tomorrow could always be better than today. The stars themselves seemed brighter, somehow lit by the fire of species who had learned from humanity's example. The galaxy had discovered that the only chains that truly bind are the ones we accept for ourselves.